How's it going, Yankee fans? Welcome back to Fireside Yankees with your boys Alex and Ryan. So today we're going to look at 5 players the Yankees could leverage via trade. We're going to rank them, like the most valuable pieces the Yankees have. And of course, Juan Soto's being discussed. They're exchanging player names. It's legit. It's real. And we want to talk about who they could actually move in a prospective deal like this. Obviously, there are some valuable pieces. They want MLB-ready pitching. Think about other players. Brendan Donovan, for example. Like, who knows? The Yankees have done surprising stuff all the time. Like, sometimes you just don't even see it coming, and we want to be prepared and take a look at the pieces the Yankees do have they could leverage, and the valuable ones that really have substantial upside and control and youth and are cost efficient, because a lot of teams are trying to not spend big on players and acquire big contracts. They want to acquire controllable players that are obviously talented, but also have even more upside to boot. So, Ryan, before we dive into the 5 players we think the Yankees could be utilizing as trade pieces this offseason, how you do tonight, my friend?
I'm doing great. Looking at, the Yankees organization right now, I know that a lot of people have this opinion that because the team was mediocre this past season, that they don't have good young talent, which couldn't be farther from the truth. Just because Josh Donaldson can't hit doesn't mean they don't have good prospects, right? Or it doesn't mean they don't have good young players, or at least talented ones. Granted, it's hard to look at anything related to the 2023 season and try to take away positives, but I feel like the Yankees have a lot of pieces that are tradable, and more than they've had in years past, right? Like, before it was always, you're trying to trade like the corpse of Miguel Andujar or Clint Frazier, right? Or you're trying to trade I guess injured Luis Hill, or try to package guys who aren't that good to get really good players. But the Yankees have some really good talent in their system. And, the first guy that you had mentioned before we recorded was Clark Schmidt, who I think is the most, likely guy to get traded, right? Like, I think at this point we're looking at him and saying, if there's anybody who makes sense in a pitcher for hitter deal, it's Clark Schmidt. And I like Schmidt. Like, he's my guy. That's my dude. I've lobbied for him a lot on this podcast, and I still think there's a lot of upside, but the Yankees need hitting, and I'm sorry, the Yankees are a pitching factory internally, right? Like, the Yankees spawn pitchers left and right. Like, I just did an article on Will Warren that I sent in for pending, and I was looking at his stuff and kind of breaking down some of the things I saw in the Yankee organization as well, and his stuff is legit, right? You have some other guys in that farm system who are really talented, who are on the way. I think Schmidt, not that he's expendable, because he did pitch 159 innings last season, and the Yankees struggled to get innings pitched from their starters, but I do think that the Yankees can afford to lose Schmidt and find somebody on the free agent market or find somebody on the trade front to potentially replace his innings. Also, pitchers are volatile, right? Like, anybody can get hurt at any time, right? Anybody can get hurt. Anybody can stay healthy. Like, it happens, right? Pitchers, we're at the point in time in pitching history where, there's a pitch clock, right? There are, guys throwing harder than they've ever thrown before, and the human body has not had time to adjust to that. And, we're still learning how to get, better injury prevention or what it may be. And trust me, teams are spending a lot of money to do so. It's not like teams don't care. They are trying. It's just really difficult, and it's a fickle thing, right? Like, throwing a baseball is already an unnatural motion. Look at the way that football players throw versus how baseball players throw, right? There's more of that kind of chop movement for a football player, whereas for baseball players, they're getting behind the ball, or they're trying to get around the ball, or whatever it may be. So it is an unnatural movement for the shoulder. But Clark Schmidt, not to get too nerdy here, Clark Schmidt certainly could help you get a return for a big-time bat. If you headline a package with a guy like Clark Schmidt and some prospects, I think you could get a Juan Soto, or as you mentioned, a Brendan Donovan. And end of the day, the Yankees need big left-handed hitters, and they need guys who are young. They need guys who, can become a part of their core. I know the report from Andy Martino came out saying, and Bob Klapisch as well. I don't want to, leave out credits here. I know both of them had talked about how, the expectation would be that if you acquire Soto, it would essentially be a rental, right? Like, you were not going to be able to extend them before the season, but I would say that the Yankees are one of the few teams that could acquire Juan Soto and at least make a compelling offer, right? The Yankees are going to try. They're not going to be like, what's that? Scott Boras has never, doesn't really like taking extensions. I guess we won't try. They'll sit down with Juan Soto and they'll say, hey, here's this amount of money, and, hope he takes it or whatever it may be. Remember, the Yankees tried hard to extend Judge, and Judge wanted a lot of money for, what we felt his player value was at the time. And then he had an incredible season, and it looked like he was right to, value himself at that price. So Juan Soto's certainly in a position to bet on himself. I mean, come on, do you think that Juan Soto can't put up an even better season in his age 25 year, especially if he's playing at Yankee Stadium? You don't think he's thinking to himself, man, if I hit 40, 45 home runs, I'm getting paid, right? But from the New York Yankees perspective too, if they make a $500 million offer, It's hard to turn down $500 guaranteed $1 million. If you get hurt, you lose all that money. So, I think that could help a little bit there. But end of the day, yeah, Clark Schmidt, certainly a guy that I could see being moved this offseason. And I wouldn't be shocked about that.
Yeah, I mean, look, right now, if I'm the Yankees and you acquire Juan Soto, I'm probably going up to Boras and saying, like, behind closed doors, I don't want to make this public, we'll give you 10 years, $375 million right now. You don't give them your final top offer, but you give them an offer that's, like, worth considering, right? He rejected a $440 million offer over 12 years to the Nationals. It would have paid him $29 million per season. This offer would pay him $37.5 million per year. Most people believe he's going to get around $400 million, but like you just said, and here's the thing, Juan Soto's been healthy every single year, knock on wood. 162 games played last year. If he comes and plays a phenomenal season with the Yankees, he's going to get a ridiculous payday. But $375 million over 10 years is already ridiculous. So you offer him that deal and say, look, before you even take an at bat for us, we're willing to extend you on a monster contract. And maybe he's like, I'll take that. I'll take that because I don't have to risk anything. If I don't have a good year, if I get injured, if I get hurt, my value is going to get reduced to a degree. I'll take this money now. And at the very least, maybe Scott Boras says, hey, we'll do 10 years, $400 million. Like, that's what we were looking for. And before you even touch the diamond in the Yankee Stadium, we're locked in for the future. Like, maybe they were agreed to do that. Maybe they're like, well, that's what we thought we were going to get anyway. We'll take that money now before you even have to go to free agency and risk this season potentially reducing our value here. So there's an opportunity that may go along those lines, but I would argue that I actually think that Clark Schmidt upside is substantial. Like, obviously he's under control for another few years. I would argue that Michael King is even more valuable, and I think that you may sit here and agree with that. So Michael King is an exciting young player for one big reason. He was really healthy last year, and that health is a really good compounding effect for what we could see in 2024. Making that transition from the bullpen to the starting rotation obviously is not so simple. He pitched, 130 innings or so. So this is a guy who, at the top of his game has ace-level quality. Like, Michael King on his game is one of the best pitchers on our team. If he can do it consistently, if he can do it every 4 out of 5 games, he's going to be a sick pitcher for us and for anybody else that may want him too. We saw yesterday the Yankees are open to the idea of trading Clark Schmidt and Michael King. It's not going to be both. It's going to be one of them. I personally would rather trade Clark Schmidt because the upside is there, but we've seen the elite consistency from Michael King. We know that he is capable of doing on a weekly basis. Clark Schmidt is volatile. Like, one day he has a 6 ERA and the next day he has a great game, and it's just back and forth, back and forth. You don't know what version you're going to get of him, and now that could dissipate, but I think you can sell that concept to a team like the Padres. Like, you're getting a cheap player for years, upside. He can be a middle of the rotation guy for you instantly, and we'll throw in Chase Hampton just to make it even better. So, there's opportunity there. I think I'd rather keep Michael King. So right now, I'm my top value pitcher for the Yankees, I think, is Michael King. I think Clark Schmidt is number 2, and my third is Drew Thorpe. Now, I think, fourth has to be Chase Hampton, and then fifth I'd probably say is Everson Pereira. I'm not including Jason Dominguez and Anthony Volpe. Obviously, Volpe's not a prospect anymore, but I'm not including Jason Dominguez in this equation because I think the Yankees make him basically a no trade. Like, he's not going to be moved, so I'm not going to put him as an asset because obviously he's our top prospect and he's a guy that would be the most valuable in this specific scenario, but they're not trading Jason Dominguez for a 1-year rental for Soto. How would you rank your 5 top players right now? Obviously, Michael King, not a prospect. Clark Schmidt, not a prospect anymore. But how would you rank those guys in terms of your most valuable to, guys that maybe your least valuable? Of course, pitching is going to be the most valuable in most scenarios.
So I would say Michael King is the most valuable player in that group, but I would also throw like a little dark horse for Chase Hampton, depending on the organization, right? Like, Michael King does only have 2 years of control left, so it's a little bit limited. I'd go as far as to say, now, obviously I don't think either of us are going to argue that Michael King should hold up a Juan Soto deal, but if you were able to keep Michael King, that would be ideal. And if you're able to keep Michael King, I'd see what it takes to extend him. Like, would he take like a 5-year, like $60 million deal? Like, would he take that? Like, that's $60 million guaranteed dollars, and pitchers are not getting any healthier, right? And if he's not great, he's what? An expensive reliever, right? Like, if he's not a great starter, if he's just an expensive reliever, you can eat that, right? Like, I'll take an expensive, like, I'll take a guy making $10 million out of the bullpen. Even though I know you don't want to pay relievers, you're paying him to be a starter. And again, worst case scenario, he just becomes a reliever. The stuff is legit, man. Like, he's got a legit 4-pitch mix. He actually mentioned he's thinking about working on a 5th pitch. I think it's going to be his cutter. His cutter was actually good in 2021. I have a feeling or an inkling it's going to be that pitch. It's also a contact prevention pitch, and I think that's something that he would like to work on in 2024. But man, he was unbelievable down the stretch. So, I really do think he's awesome. But Chase Hampton, I think, is going to be heavily coveted by a team like the San Diego Padres. Quite frankly, any team in baseball. This guy has legit stuff. Four-seam fastball, excellent. 93 to 95, which velocity-wise isn't stellar, but it's the riding action, man. He gets 18 to 20 inches of carry on that thing. That is a sick heater. That thing is going to get plenty of swings and misses. He's got a great sweeper, good cutter, developing, his changeup and curveball, having more weapons against left-handed hitting. But man, the arsenal is really good. Don't get me wrong, Drew Thorpe is awesome, but Drew Thorpe's a year older than Chase Hampton and probably has a more limited upside. This isn't to downplay Drew Thorpe, but if we're nitpicking, which we are when we're talking about who's the best pitcher in your organization at the minor league level, you have to nitpick. You have to look at every detail. You have to analyze every little thing, every little flaw, every little upside, whatever it may be. Chase Hampton is a legit bona fide. This dude is gonna be a top of the rotation starter if he fills out his frame and if he continues to just get a little bit better. And I do think the Padres are gonna end up getting him. I think he is never gonna pitch for the New York Yankees because I think the San Diego Padres are gonna say, we need Chase Hampton. You're not making this trade without Chase Hampton. And rightfully so, right? I would, if I'm the San Diego Padres, I'm not taking anything less than Chase Hampton as the pitching prospect in that deal. Now, Everson Pereira is interesting. I was actually on MLB Nerd's Space yesterday, and he mentioned that the Padres don't really like Everson Pereira that much. And I kind of understand why. There are lower body injuries, right? And if you're a team like the Padres, are you going to acquire a young player who already has lower body injuries? Is there a player that you know who has had lower body issues and has seen that get better as they've gotten older? Now, for the Yankees, I don't think that's the worst thing in the world because they need outfielders, right? Like the Yankees need plethora of outfielders. I think that they were aware of the fact that Pereira was not a guarantee to get traded, and they're still interested in getting a center fielder. So, in the situation where you have to start Pereira on AAA next year, that's fine, right? I see a lot of people like, what do you have to do with Pereira? He has options, and he's only 22 years old. He'll turn 23 at the end of April. Somebody's going to get hurt, right? Like somebody at some point during the season is going to get hurt, right? And let's have a real conversation here. If you get Kevin Kiermaier, it's either Stanton or Kiermaier, right? I don't mean to be like a pessimist, but that's just how baseball works, right? Like it is what it is. And he's going to have some time to develop, show some stuff off in spring training, maybe earn a fourth outfield job and get some reps in the early parts of the season. But, if the Yankees can find a deal for him and get some surplus value, that's fine. But I don't think they should force themselves to trade Everson Pereira. I feel that way about every player on this list. You shouldn't force yourself to trade a player unless said player is a financial issue for you or a clubhouse issue or just not very good. But I would consider all of these players extremely talented. So, to answer your question fully, I would say King is the most valuable piece there. I think Hampton has a dark horse case to be that. Schmidt's probably third. Pereira's probably fourth. That's where I'd go on this. And of course, I don't think Dominguez or Volpe are being included in a Juan Soto deal. So I think I think John Heyman mentioned this too. You should put the water out on that if you're a Yankee fan right now. The Padres are not getting either of those two players for Juan Soto. They have no leverage here, right? Like the extension thing, it takes away the leverage too. You're not trading for his exclusive negotiating rights anymore, number one. And number two, Nick Martinez just signed with the Cincinnati Reds. All right, he did so last night. That's the first pitcher of their group of 5 guys who were key parts of their pitching staff last season. The clock is ticking for San Diego. They don't move Soto, pitchers are going to go off the market like this. They've got no shot at Yamamoto. Eduardo Rodriguez should sign soon. They're not going to have the money to sign Jordan Montgomery. These guys are going to start flying off the board. So San Diego, clock's ticking. The Yankees can wait this one out. There's no left fielder that they're waiting to sign, right? I don't care if they go down to the wire for Soto. San Diego, it's your move, and you better make it quick.
Yeah, I mean, look, the truth is they don't have the money to spend on a pitcher. Obviously, Aaron Nola's already gone back to Philadelphia. Sonny Gray signed a new contract. Even Severino just signed with the Mets on a 1-year, $13 million deal, and good luck to Sevy over there. Not too much luck, but a little bit of luck. Hopefully he bounces back and has a good rest of his career because, we love Sevy. Obviously, hasn't been good in quite a while, but we rooted for him big, and, obviously didn't pan out. The injuries are just unfortunate and unpredictable at times. But when it comes to Soto, like you said, Yankees have leverage here. There's nobody else they're waiting on. I personally am not a big fan of signing Cody Bellinger. I know that you also have your reservations. I think that he is going to regress. In the last 3 years, he's had one great season. Going to the Bronx where people are hostile and his hard hit rates are at a career low, coming off career lows. Like, I just don't know if he's going to be able to replicate those numbers. I'm a bit concerned. Of course, his defensive value is through the roof. He's a freaking monster defensively in center field and first base. I just don't necessarily trust the fact that we'll give him 200. And what is he? He wants a crazy deal, right? Doesn't he want like a 12-year deal at like a ridiculous price point? Like
$250 million.
250. So it's $21 million for 12 years, and he's 29. I mean, guys, if that's any example to like not go down that road, like that's the perfect contract to avoid at all costs. Please, God, do not do that, Yankees. Now they're keeping their eyes on Bellinger, keeping tabs on him. But clearly they are very much in on Soto. And I think that the winter meetings coming up in a couple days here are going to answer a lot of questions, Ryan. I think that we're going to see a lot more heat kind of coming from the winter meetings, because that's when things start to get, all the GMs come together, everyone comes together, and you're going to see like AJ Preller probably hearing out a bunch of different teams. Like, we know the Mets probably aren't going to acquire Soto because they're kind of rebuilding right now. They may go after Yamamoto, which I think they'll be aggressive there, but there's not many teams that are really in the mix for Soto, unless you look like maybe the San Francisco Giants. That's a potential alternative there. I think that there are going to be some, but the Yankees have the MLB ready pitching. The Yankees have the prospects that are rising. They've got all this, they've got all the resources. Like, they have the leverage, they have the opportunity, and they're the most aggressive. Nobody else, and I think it's important to note that no other teams have been linked to Soto in terms of having actual negotiations about names, like swapping names. The Yankees are the only team that I've heard, I don't know if you've heard any different, that have an ongoing negotiations about what players will be swapped in a prospective deal. No other team has been mentioned. So I think that really leans in our favor. So right now it's very realistic. Like, we're looking at a situation that, it's not just conjecture anymore. It's not just a hope and a prayer and a dream. It's a reality. Like, they're having these conversations right now. So we'll see what they want. AJ Preller, obviously, having sold the farm a couple of years ago, is going to want as much as he can get in return. But even he knows that, like, you got to start high to get yourself into the middle. If you start in the middle, you're going to end up in between middle and low. But if you start high, you're going to end up in between middle and high. So I think he'll walk away with an MLB-ready pitcher and a prospect. But I am curious to see if they force the Yankees to take on, like, Jake Cronenworth's contract. But here's the thing, though. If they force the Yankees to take Cronenworth, who's signed a 7-year, $80 million deal, expires in 2031, if they force them to take Cronenworth's deal, they're going to have to come to the conclusion that they're not going to get the same pool of prospects if they were to just trade Soto outright, because you're now latching a contract onto it, and what is that contract worth? To the Yankees, taking on an $80 million deal, that's worth Chase Hampton. You know what I mean? That's a big prospect for them. Like, they're going to be like, no, we're not taking on this $80 million deal and giving you 2 MLB-ready pitchers. That's not how this is going to work. So I think that the Padres are in a position where it's either Soto alone, or they're going to have to take a lot less and pair a contract with it. So we'll see what happens here. But the Yankees, in my opinion, you have really good pitching prospects. Everson Pereira, who reportedly they may not like that very much. But again, he could be a fine utility piece, a fine supplementary outfield for you in 2024. Let him continue his development, rounding out his offensive identity, getting better with plate discipline. Wait for an injury. The Yankees get injured every year. All you have to do is just keep Pereira ready to get called up, and he'll be ready. I actually wouldn't be surprised to see Florial make the active roster, and eventually, if he struggles, they could just let him go and then call Pereira up. I wouldn't be surprised if they kind of did something similar to that. So we'll see how this goes over the next couple of weeks, if not months. But things are real, my friends. We got you guys covered on the daily news. As always, make sure to like and subscribe to the Fireside Yankees channel. Appreciate the love and support, and we'll catch you guys on the next episode.